Talk to me about Jim Neidhart. Jim Neidhart has not had the best success away from wrestling, but were there any other times in wrestling that you feel like he really did a good job? I mean, it feels like to me Jim Neidhart's kind of peak of his career is right here, man. It's in the Hart Foundation. Even when he's tagging with Owen and he's doing other gimmicks, it just doesn't ever feel like it gets back to this point for him professionally.
Some guys are tag team guys, and the Hart Foundation, they were a great tag team.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Jim on his own was as attractive as the singles. So it's Brett shined, and Brett was able to go out on his own and get a following and do well. And Jim just needed that crutch. Jim needed somebody. He needed that workhorse in there.
Isn't it interesting that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart's career here are really starting to parallel?
Sure.
With this being their last tag thing together, and then in the next two WrestleManias, they're both on their way to Intercontinental belts, and then they're on their way to the world titles in the following years. So lots of parallels. Let's get to match number 6. This is something that I was really excited to talk about as a kid. God, I just love this. Jake Roberts and Rick Martel. And a lot of this happened on the Brother Love show. And I just kind of want you to carry us through, how this all came to be. If you remember, he was Rick the Model Martel. He had a cologne he was pushing. And what did you call the contraption that kept that in?
The Atomizer.
The Atomizer.
That's what it's called.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not a word that I hear very often.
Arrogance.
It's a bug spray gimmick that you guys spray paint and put stickers on that says arrogance. It's pretty creative.
I tech stuff.
Who was in control of the props at that time? Can you give credit to somebody?
We didn't really have a prop guy at that time or a magic guy at that time. That was
wait. Did you just say magic guy?
Yes.
So WWE refers to a prop guy as a magic guy?
No, the prop guy referred to himself as the magic guy. He was an absolute genius, Richie Posner, and that's what we called his area magic.
Well, give me an idea of some magic he created.
Everything that was out there, any special effects, any props or anything like that.
So when the ring collapsed,
he hated the word prop.
Okay.
He preferred to say he made magic, which he did. And he was a magician, too, by trade, and a great magician.
Okay, that explains it. I was going to say, because Carrot Top does not refer to himself as a magic comic. He's a prop comic.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Richie was actually a magician as well, and he referred to what he did as magic. And I get it. He was great at what he did.
Well, listen.
I'll call it whatever you want me to, as long as it works.
Well, there was magic in this angle, so even if he didn't make the Atomizer, it was still cool.
I think Creative Services did.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's kind of cool. Rick Martel in these skits on the Brother Love show is looking damn styling in these suits he's rocking and toting around some arrogance, and he sprays it in the eyes of Jake Roberts. Whose idea was this, and do you remember who would have produced it or put all this together? Does any of that ring a bell?
Well, I did the arrogance and the model vignettes and stuff. Vince and I did those. I don't remember whose idea it was. Probably, either Pat or Vince, one of the two. But it was a way to present Martel. Rick was French-Canadian, great talent, not the best talker in the world. And it was a way to get that French out of him a little bit and the arrogance, if you will, of how some people looked at the French. And just get a little bit more personality out of Rick. He was great in the ring and everything he did. Looked like $1 million. And it's another example of a gimmick that you give a guy and the talent was able to pull it off.
He does a phenomenal job here. One of the better angles, for those of you who don't remember, the arrogance gets sprayed in the eyes of Jake the Snake Roberts. He is blinded on the set.
Yeah, but all that was location because that was all on the Brother Love show, so that's what made it great.
Absolutely. It was on Superstars, on the Brother Love show. It's a pretty lengthy angle as far as shooting stuff because week 1 is the blinding angle. Week 2, we see Jake at the optometrist. A couple of weeks later, we see him back on the Brother Love show, and this time, being harassed by Rick Martel. and he's just feeling around blindly and gives Brother Love a DDT.
He sure did.
What's the trick to taking a DDT so well? Because you did a great job on that DDT.
You listen to the Snake Man and take it exactly like he tells you to. It's actually one of the simplest bumps in the world that people complicate and get hurt trying to take it different ways. If you take it like Jake has taught people to take it over the years and you do it correctly, I think it looks great and looks like $1 million, and he'll take care of you every single time. Working with Jake and taking the DDT was a night off.
Well, in that angle where he DDTs you, the glasses slip off, and Jake has a contact in to make his eyes look white, and or maybe they are white. That arrogance really got in there and took all the pigmentation out of his eye. My apologies. And then several weeks later, Jake blindsides the guys in the middle of a match. I believe it's Tito and Martel. And because he's blind, he winds up attacking Tito. He's not sure. Couldn't see where he is. And then they do a pre-tape with Jake, a backstage interview, and then a huge pop for him. Jake was over like Rover here. And then this summer, you guys would turn him heel. Is that because he wanted to work heel? Do you remember?
Jake always wanted to work heel.
Yeah.
He was more comfortable as a heel.
Well, I think that summer is probably some of his best stuff, and I look forward to us talking about that on a future episode. But what's interesting about this match is you guys would blindfold these guys by putting bags over their head, black bags, not the type that Terry Funk put over Ric Flair's head, a Ziploc bag, but a black bag. And I didn't see it until this week when you and I, were skimming through the show. You guys had cutouts in there with black mesh, you dirty cheaters. They could really see the whole time.
I didn't see that.
This is why Meltzer calls you a lazy con man BS artist.
Yeah, well, you're the one that co-hosts with me.
That's true. So, were you watching on a monitor when this happens?
When what happens?
When this match takes place, Jake and Rick Martel, blindfold match, WrestleMania 7.
Yeah, I was a gorilla.
When you see Jake stick his hand up inside the mask.
Actually, you know what? The first time I ever saw that was with you.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the first time I noticed it, too.
Yeah.
If you go back and you look at this, right before the match starts, when the referee is securing the masks.
But it was lighting. No, and it wasn't necessary. It wasn't cut out. It was black, like pipe and drape.
Yeah, it was like a mesh.
Which you can see through fairly well. It's like having dark sunglasses on.
There was a piece cut out.
And no, if you look at it, it was mesh because the problem was he held it up to the light.
Okay.
And when you had something to look through on the other side, you could see that you could see through it.
Well,
and when it's up against skin and when it's up, it's like, it's black. It looks black and you can't tell. But when they held it up to the light, it was like, oh, crap.
This sounds like a terrible match, but man, it's pretty fun.
And it gets knocked all the time about, oh my God, the blindfold match. I thought they worked it tremendously. I would always think, and I haven't watched it in years, I would always go, why are people always knocking it? And then I watched it again. I thought it was great. Just the simple psychology of Jake and pointing, using the audience to tell them where Martel was. Those two guys did a great job. It was an entertaining story in the ring. And they, if you watch the match, they didn't do a whole lot.
No.
But every single thing they did meant something.
Absolutely.